Ah, that sounds like Star.
That is me. Can you hear me clearly?
Yep.
Okay. I'm using my phone to do the Zoom piece. So I just want to make sure.
Okay. And Jody, it's 2 minutes out.
He has already turned on the YouTube feed.
Oh, we did? Okay, great. Betty, are you okay?
I'm having trouble with my head.
I'm sorry to hear that. Okay, I won't make you talk. Okay, it is 8:30. We'll call this meeting to order. We have a quorum. All commissioners are present via Zoom. And our first item of business would be the Pledge of Allegiance. And once again, Commissioner Price has come through with a flag. We can depend on him to love America. We appreciate that, Commissioner Price. Mr. Poe, would you be willing to lead us in the pledge this evening? You can feel free to unmute.
Yes.
There we go.
That would help, wouldn't it?
It would.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. Our first item of business this evening will be the approval of previous minutes. And I saw we had a recent email on that. Do we have any discussion, insertions, deletions from the commissioners about the minutes?
None from me. I move to accept the meeting minutes from the June 24th meeting.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'm going to have to call back in.
Okay, we will.
I'm not getting any I can't hear anything.
Okay, we will wait for Commissioner Starr to call back. And since I see that Mr. Poe looks like he's in his office, I'm going to assume everything is finished and we're ready to go with results when it's that time. Good.
The results are posted on the website.
Excellent.
Oh, wow.
Well, the results are pretty close. Nothing like Pulaski County elections. It's exciting. At least it's not a dead even tie.
Don't even
Well,
joke about that.
I know. I not
Chair
one-
Gomez.
not
Don't
wood.
even joke about it.
2020's not the year to be joking about any more of that stuff.
Mhm.
Well, any word from Commissioner Starr with her connection? I know she was having trouble there.
She's apparently having computer issues.
Okay. We can wait a couple minutes.
Is she able to call in just with her phone?
She was on her phone and she said she couldn't hear, so she got out and was gonna call back
Gotcha.
in.
Testing.
Ah, that's her.
I'm having major issues. I can't get my computer to come up. My phone keeps blinking out. I guess my internet's having some interruptions. So
So, well,
crossed.
can you hear us at least right now?
I can. It was just I could hear y'all and then y'all disappeared and I could hear you again and then you disappeared. So
Okay, well,
it-
we'll
it's
try
a
to make
step-
this quick. Okay, well, since we, for the moment, have Commissioner Starr back with us. I believe we were discussing our previous minutes. Commissioner Price made a motion to accept the minutes. Commissioner Starr, do you have it? Is there a second?
Yeah, there's your second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, going on to the business of the hour, the July 7th, 2020 Jacksonville special runoff election. Our first order of business would be the canvass of absentee ballots. So, Mr. Poe, if you could lead us through that.
Yes, yes, ma'am. There were 24 absentee ballots that were returned, of which 15 were counted. 7 were made provisional because they did not include ID. They did, however, sign their optional verification of identity. And then 2 were disqualified, one because the voter statement was incomplete, the other because the addresses didn't match on the voter statement and the absentee application. They're all fairly clear cut.
Okay. Did I miss that? Did we get that from you, Mr. Post, so the commissioners can take a look at those?
I could scan those in if you'd like, but they're fairly straightforward.
Yes, I would. I would like the commissioners to have an opportunity to see those.
Brian, is there not a
yeah.
spreadsheet breakdown of that?
Yeah.
There is, and then I can send that to you.
Yes, the stuff we normally have, that would be good. Please, the spreadsheet that we normally have.
Oh, well, typically the spreadsheet doesn't go out until the Thursday meeting, but I just happen to have it today.
Well, great. We'll send it now, and then we'll have it in front of our Thursday meeting.
If I could get it to cooperate with me.
Okay. Not a shortage of computer issues this evening, I'm sure.
Yes, I think I'm about to kick Bailey off her TV so I can get better connection.
That's
All
probably
that bandwidth is just, it's all taken up.
Yeah, I think that's the problem.
Okay, it's sent.
okay.
Received. Thank you, Brian.
Yep, I'm working on it. Okay. Is there more than, I've got 8. Is there more than one?
There's 2 sheets.
Okay,
One of them is the provisional absentee that should be counted, and the other one is the disqualified absentee.
I see. Did you send 2 emails? I just only got one?
No, there's just one email. It's 2 sheets on the same, in the same file.
There's two tabs.
Oh,
Two
there's another
tabs. at the
tab.
top.
There's another tab at the bottom. On a phone, it's very difficult to see that there's another tab. Okay, got it. So that is. And you said there were 15 total?
There were 15 that were counted. There were 24 total.
Okay, 24 total. Okay. And you said on the disqualified one was a voter statement?
Yes, one of them,
Mhm.
for Ms. Mirgon, she did not put her address on her voter statement.
Okay,
And then for the other one, they did not, their address didn't match.
Did it not match, or was there a second place that they had the correct address on the statement?
They had 3 addresses and none of them matched.
Okay.
Well,
that's unfortunate. Did any of the 3 address match what they're registered to vote? The address that we had for them?
Let me see. Let me go ahead and pull that. And as I look at it now, I can see that
These, at least, at minimum with the disqualified, we may want to see those as a commission before we make any type of a decision on that.
okay. And then now that I look at it, that name on the second one is actually wrong. So let me update that for y'all real quick. And then I'll resend it.
So is the address and the name did not match on the second one?
No, like the name that's on the spreadsheet is wrong. The reason is right.
Okay. Okay, so you're sending us another email then?
Yes.
Let me get back to that.
And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and scan, or actually I'll ask Sean to scan this in real quick so I can
You
send
can
that.
scan, or you can just take it, if you've got a, iPhone there, it's okay. You just take a picture and email it. If it's quicker, it's only 2.
Okay.
Whatever is easier.
Okay, let's see. This gentleman has 2 addresses in Georgia and 1 in Jacksonville, and none of them match. So that was the issue with this one. That was the wrong so I'm gonna resend the sheet first, and then what I'll do is I'll just, would you prefer it emailed or texted?
Email's perfectly fine.
Okay.
If you email it, then all the information is in the same place. You don't have to go back and forth.
Here's the updated one.
There we go. Okay, so this is updated as to the disqualified page is what was updated. Is that correct?
Yes, the disqualified page was up.
I don't have any questions.
I don't think I will either. If I just wanted to see the two disqualified just to take a look at them.
Okay, it should be on its way.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Brian.
And there were 7 provisionals that did not have ID that did sign or did not sign. I can't read the handwriting and I took notes here.
They did sign.
They
They all-
did sign. Okay. They all signed.
Else,
Okay, good. Oop, I think we got it. There it is. Brian, I don't think you attached anything. I think you just sent a blank email.
it should have been in line, like it should be in the email itself. No attachments.
Yes, it
Nope.
is. It just took a minute to load.
I see. Okay. It's that full color red there, or whatever that pink salmon that we have. Okay. We've got.
That is the wrong voter statement.
Okay.
I don't know where that. Oh, that's from the previous meeting. That's what that is. Okay, let's try this again.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
these,
I'll stop trying to load that one.
these are the two from the previous meeting. Let's see if we can't do this again. My apologies. I'm not nearly as proficient with my smartphone as I am with my computer.
Well, if it's quicker to go to the copier and make a scan, then by all means.
Okay, we'll try this again. Okay.
There we are. Ah, and that one loads better. Okay. Is there a new form?
That was a U of Cabo. Like
Okay.
a form, I think. Yeah, federal postcard application.
Okay. I just hadn't
And-
seen one of these. I had not seen one of these in a while. Okay, so Georgian.
And so we've got a Jacksonville address here on the application, and then on the voter statement there are two different Georgia addresses.
And none of them match.
There's a Georgia address.
Chadwick?
Yeah, there's a Georgia address and a Jacksonville address on the application. And then on the voter statement, there's a Georgia address that doesn't match the Georgia address that's on the application.
I see. There's a PO box on the request, and it looks like they gave us their actual physical
Mhm.
locale. I mean, that's rough. It's too bad. Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely unfortunate, but I mean,
There's no way that matches. There's just no
no way
way.
that matches, and there's no way for us to know.
No.
Like Georgia, even in two different towns.
Yeah.
it is two different towns.
And then Ms. Mirgan
Yeah,
didn't even put
Mirgan.
an address at all.
Yeah, she didn't put an address at all.
No,
No.
she did put it on the application though. I mean, I mean, obviously she got it, but well, okay.
Well, and this is why I've already been. I'm sure, as like the other commissioners, you've been getting plenty of questions about absentee ballots, and I say you need to double and triple check everything you fill out and make sure it's correct. Because any small human error like that, I mean, there's just no way for us to know.
You know, I like well, we can talk about that in just a minute. All right, commissioners, as far as the absentees, do we have a motion or any additional discussion? And if not, I will entertain a motion.
I move to accept the absentee ballots as presented for the July 7th, 2020 Jacksonville special runoff election.
That's with the counting 15, the 7 provisionals that had no ID, but they just did sign, and the 2 disqualified.
Correct. Yes.
I
Okay.
second, and I appreciated that motion because I couldn't remember the number.
All those in favor?
I,
Motion carries.
Okay, with that motion, that basically moots the purpose for the Thursday meeting.
Yeah. Because we don't have anything left.
Yeah, because that's everything right there. There were no provisional early votes or provisional election day ballots.
Did we have any UOCAVAs outstanding that we were waiting on?
I do not believe so. The clerk's office hasn't informed me, so.
Okay. Well, unless you hear otherwise, and if Mr. Poe tomorrow during business hours, I'm not going to make you go bother someone at the clerk's office tonight, but tomorrow, if you could just double check that we indeed do not have any outstanding votes. Okay. Because every vote counts. And we don't want to err against any voters. Okay. So let me get back to my screen I was on so I can follow along. Okay. So those are absentee ballots, the unofficial election results, and I saw that Jody posted those.
Are they posted?
They are,
Yeah.
and I believe that we got an email. The email at
It's going to my
8:32.
spam. Yeah, it's in my spam.
The summary report we got via email.
Anything for PCEC is going to my spam.
Same.
I'm having problems with my PCEC email. I wasn't able to access or check the email, and I just thought we hadn't gotten anything until whenever it was this evening that I you texted back.
Mhm.
I don't know, 15 emails just populated, boom, 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 from the last couple days. So I don't know what's going on. I'm going to have to make an appointment to sit down with Jody or Skype with Jody or do some, figure out what's going on and why my emails aren't loading. But we won't deal. It's not something to worry about right this second. However, it seems to be an issue. I don't know what the problem is. So, commissioners, let me know when you've all had a chance to take a look.
Yes, I'm looking at it right now.
Okay. And there was an undervote with only one thing to vote for. All right, commissioners, any discussion? or
Everything
questions?
looks good to me, Madam Chair.
All right. Commissioner Starr?
It looks good to me.
Okay. Well, Mr. Poe, will you do the honors of our results this evening?
Okay, the unofficial results as of now are Jeff Elmore with 369 votes and Michael Dietz with 394 votes.
Okay. We have a motion for unofficial results.
I make a motion to approve the unofficial results for the Jacksonville special runoff election, July 7th, 2020.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay.
Okay, and may I ask if we're allowed to use your stamps to place on the unofficial results?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
please.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Please, you can use stamp for all purposes that you need the stamp, our stamps used for this evening, also to sign us in. For the remainder of these COVID days that we're in here. Okay. So that takes care of our business for the election tonight. COVID mitigation procedures for in-person voting. We've got the update that was emailed out. Mr. Poe, would you like to lead us through that?
These are basically the procedures we're planning on using for our training, early voting, and election day. They include following best practices and recommendations, which of course is physical distancing, separate entrances and exits for each. Limiting, as far as training goes, limiting class sizes, spacing out the trainees. So what we're looking at right now is we're going to be starting training in Jeffrey Hawkins in the first week of August. So we're limiting our class size to, it says 25 here. We're actually going to be limiting it to basically 3 polls, which is roughly 20 people.
Okay.
Mr. Camp has already gone, or Sean has already gone into the Jeffrey Hawkins, measured everything out. That's the most we can fit in there while maintaining the 6 foot physical distancing. In addition to that, as with everybody who enters our building, everybody will be given a temperature check. They'll be asked questions regarding fevers, COVID exposure, COVID within their household, etc. And then everybody will be required to wear a mask during the entirety of each training session. As far as the staff goes, the staff will maintain physical distance, at the front of the room, and we'll also be placing hand sanitizers, hand sanitizer at the entrances and exits. We will be between classes, like all surfaces will be sanitized. And of course, we'll encourage everybody to wash their hands as they enter and leave.
And Director Poe, according to the executive order that the county judge, I'm sorry, I have a cold, that the county judge issued, masks have to be worn in county buildings if you're not in an enclosed office.
Yes.
So this needs to be updated to reflect that. However, and we'll discuss it here in a minute, but there is an issue with requiring masks for voters.
Yes.
And we're not going to do. So I'm not sure how to approach that yet, but we do need to make sure to update to say that commission staff will wear a mask
Yes.
if they're within the same room.
Yeah, and that was kind of taken as a given with the judge's orders, but we could definitely spell that out.
Yes,
Yes,
It-
please do.
like
please
in the
do that.
document.
Because
Okay.
his order is much more stringent than the requirements that is pretty much everywhere else. So I
Okay,
just want to
so-
make sure that we have that information in there.
Yes, and so what I'll do is under commission staff is where it says wear mask unless physical distancing. I'm just going to delete the unless physical distancing can be maintained and just say wear mask.
Okay.
Does that sound all right?
That's good.
Brian, I had a question, a procedural question that I actually had a couple folks bring up to me. When voters come in, and if they are already wearing a mask, and they provide their ID, I'm assuming they take off their mask then to show their face to make sure it matches with the ID.
We're actually I've actually asked that question of the State Board of Election Commissioners, and I'm asking them to provide guidance not only to us but to everybody in the state on how that's to be handled.
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately it's a very difficult call without guidance from the state.
Okay.
And basically we, just like anything else with our elections.
What do you recommend? If you had to make a call right now, Mr. Poe, what do you recommend?
If I had to make a call, I would say that the poll worker would just have to use their best judgment.
Okay.
But ultimately, because it's just such a hard balancing act with comparing the ID versus the possibility, the health considerations. And thankfully, we have folks up there at the state who, who can kind of give us some guidance on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want any discretion for poll workers with any of this because I mean, that could be a huge issue if we have poll
Absolutely.
workers doing different things at different
Mhm.
locations or even the same location, different days. So,
We need consistency.
yeah.
Well, I agree. And I think about, someone might say, well, let me look at their hair, but your hair can be different than what's in your ID. You know what I mean? So it's very
Mhm.
difficult to try to identify someone just through their hair and whatever else that is visible. And as to Commissioner Starr's point, I don't want poll workers to be inconsistent with, between poll workers and locations and everything. We need some guidance from the state board would be great.
Okay. All right. What other discussion on our,
And I think it's
Moving
important to point out that we are not requiring voters to wear masks, but we are providing them should they choose to wear them, or should they choose to.
So,
Because
sorry. How
Go
are we handling that with the executive order? Well, let's say the executive order is extended about another week or a week and a half. And we have the early vote site downtown, and that's a county building. So how are we handling that?
are we going to ask for an exemption?
we would ask for an exemption, and it's just the same thing with originally with the Jacksonville Community Center, that same type of requirement was in place. We talked to the state board, and we're all on the same page there. You can't deny somebody their fundamental rights just because they don't want to wear a mask.
Right. Well,
You know,
not just that, they could have a health condition where they can't. So
Yes.
that's also an issue.
So it's we want, obviously, as you go out in public, there are plenty of people who do it on their own. And for those who don't already have, just kind of what I observed in Jacksonville is about 90% of the people are already wearing masks. The other 10%, 90% of them would accept a mask and wear it while they were voting. So, I would expect, something similar for a larger election where most people will wear a mask, but if they refuse to, then we're not going to turn them away.
Okay.
Will we have some to provide if someone doesn't have one?
Yes, that is the plan. We've been we're supposed to get we're supposed to get some from the Secretary of State, but we've also been stockpiling some on our own, just ordering them. And based on that, essentially that 1%, 1% that we observed in Jacksonville, we're going to order roughly 5. Basically, if it's like any previous year, we would expect to see roughly 150,000 people vote in person. So we'll shoot for having probably 20,000 masks just to be safe, and keeping in mind that across 120 locations you can't have perfect distribution.
Okay. So I have kind of a question in the similar vein here. If as far as closure of county buildings, because as of right now, there's no order to have them closed for election day. But if the Pulaski County Courthouse, for example, is closed on election day and the days preceding the election, how will poll watchers have access to view absentee ballot prep and then the counting of absentee ballots? What are we doing for that access?
There have been some I haven't discussed this within the county. I have talked to some election coordinators across the state, and that's kind of an issue we're trying to work through now. Kind of the leading idea is to provide access via a digital feed, but we're not 100% on that. That's just kind of what's out there now. However, I will go ahead and go and talk that over with our folks here at the county, with the comptroller who controls the buildings, with the county attorney who represents the county, and kind of see, you know, just kind of start discussions with them on how we should, on how we can go about addressing that issue.
Yeah, because there needs to be some, not just seeing a feed, there's challenges that need to be able to kind of live. They need to be able to do those, make those as needed if that comes up. But okay, if you can give us a update on that.
Brian, I have a
Mhm.
question.
Yeah.
You had mentioned that there would be separate areas for voters wearing masks and not wearing masks. Is that correct?
That is something that we had tried out in Jacksonville, and essentially it's just not going to be practical, especially considering the large number of locations that we have to open for the general election.
Okay.
That's it wasn't because we did it for early voting in Jacksonville, but then we discovered there really wasn't a good way to do that on election day with paper ballots, because what it comes down to is everybody converges at the same machine.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. I didn't see it in this plan, and you answered my questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I would like to do, but we just can't think of any way to do it without basically recruiting 25% more poll workers than we're already going to have.
Right.
And even then, you know, there are certain facilities where they're not going to give us 2 rooms to vote in.
Yeah, that's like, it's hard enough to get one room to vote in.
Let's see.
Okay, any other discussion? Mr. Poe, want to draw attention to any other part of this plan?
I just, for the absentee ballot, I mean, the absentee ballots are placed at the clerk's office, but they're brought over to the election commission. So any of the canvassing is done at the election commission office.
That is correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I heard the courthouse and that.
Yeah, basically,
What's going on there?
we are going you know, when we get to the absentee plan, we'll go over this a little bit, but we're going to use the entire back half of the building, like with the area that we use for training.
Mm-hmm.
Like whenever we had our meeting back there, that was maybe a third of that area that we were using for the meeting.
You can really spread out.
So yes, so we're gonna, you know, our plan is to bring in. I mean, we have to bring in a lot of people, just because. Well, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let's put it, but we'll have ample. We should have ample space for that, and I'll just leave it at that for now.
Honestly, I think that we need to update this plan for the mitigation procedures to include security
Mm-hmm.
in case there's anything else that's going on around downtown during that time period. We really need to think about our security of our documents, of our ballots, of everything that we have in that building. We don't want any kind of issues that happened recently with broken glasses, broken doors happening at the election commission where we have those items. So we really need to look at the security piece of it and how we're going to approach that. And, and hopefully that's not an issue, but we do need to be prepared. So I think that should be a part of the contingency plan.
Yes. Mr. Poe, please draft, get something, a draft of that so we can discuss it.
Sorry, y'all, but y'all broke up. I didn't hear any of that.
Okay, because what I'm hearing is I think that's something that we would address in the absentee plan.
I think it would be more of the mitigation procedures for the general election, because this would involve anything between early voting through election day.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would be more regarding the actual general election, not just for absentee voting.
But absentee as well.
Absentee as
Okay.
well.
That also
Right.
needs to be protected.
This is kind of like and in fact, even with the contingency mitigation procedures, there's really nothing that talks to the absentee portion of it and those that are coming and bringing in their ballots and things like that. So they need to kind of cross reference one another. But we
Mhm.
definitely need to do the security and just make sure we have something in place.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So basically
Sorry.
adding some about the mitigation and security procedures that we're going to be used for absentee, as well as for securing the early voting and the various materials within our building, basically through the election. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I've read articles where there's proposals to change those things, so, but I haven't seen anything brought to the commission.
Okay.
And I have a question. I think I know what this is. Is a finger caught or it's just the one digit, like little that fits over, like you see people that have like a Band-Aid that will put just over like a one. Is that what a finger caught is? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, pretty much. Don't have one here, but it's just basically a little plastic thing or rubber thing that goes over the digit, like
And
you
so
got
it's just, okay.
are. Now we'll probably go ahead and take that out because I'm sure that y'all saw the Secretary of State's, the Secretary of State and Governor's press conference last Thursday. But the Secretary of State is apparently getting enough disposable plastic styluses for everyone. So that's probably the direction we'll go in.
Okay.
We originally weren't going to do that because of expense, but if they're going to provide that, then we might as well use it.
Okay. Well,
Is there any reason though that we would still need to have them available in case somebody had a certain type of disability, they couldn't use the stylus and needed to use their actual finger?
That's something that we could send some out to each location.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea because we want to make sure all voters, regardless of their conditions and abilities, are able to vote. Which it's not just for able-bodied folks.
This is all great and we really appreciate it. And it's hard to kind of try to foresee anything that could possibly go wrong and to have a backup plan. But, trying to learn from other elections from other states and see what's going on to see how we can try to mitigate those.
Mhm.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I appreciate all the efforts that you put into this, Brian, and the Commissioner Starr as well. One maybe suggestion. I mean, you say sanitize frequently. I mean, so what does frequently mean? Does that mean every 15 minutes? Does that mean every 5 minutes?
Does that mean every day?
That's something that we're going to have to basically we're going to have to narrow that down for sure.
Okay.
Kind of what I was envisioning was somewhere along the lines of every 15 minutes, but we have to balance it with the fact that we need to keep the lines moving as well.
Right.
I have a question. Can we do what the grocery stores do and still frequently sanitize as we can, and whatever number that turns out to be? But can we also provide like sanitizing wipes where I can, as a voter, I can just grab a wipe and wipe it down myself like I can with the grocery cart at the store where I can take a wipe and wipe the handle?
That would be ideal. However, the sanitizing wipes have been the hardest thing for us to get a hold of. Like we've been literally trying to get.
Can we tell the CARES task force about that, or can we ask the Secretary of State if they can get us the disposable stylus? Maybe the governor's office or the Secretary of State or the CARES steering committee, or we could get those items, right?
I would hope that I believe that that's something that's on their list. But we could definitely ask for that.
We should ask for that. Do we send that request there to who are you going to ask, Mr. Poe?
I'll contact our election coordinator and have her point me in the right direction.
Okay. And
In
then,
terms of individual wipes, what I've noticed at the grocery stores is they have like a stand where they have a container and that container is covered with something and then you just pull the wipes already pulled up, so they just grab one.
Mhm.
So that might be easier to obtain than having individuals. To have a couple of locations where those are around where people can grab those might be easier.
Yes,
And on top of poll workers, as they're, as you take someone, especially early voting, you take someone to the machine, you watch the machine. Before you get to the machine, you could wipe down the machine and then take them, and they could see that, happening. And that could be part of the process.
I agree.
I know it's a lot to ask, but we also want to protect our poll workers.
Absolutely. And that's one of those things where it's just, to a large extent, or not, what we're able to do will be determined by what we're able to, what supplies we're able to get.
Right.
Because like it was my understanding that, the whole idea behind the stylus is that, with the stylus, the voter basically touches nothing, at least in a vote center type setup.
Mhm.
Now with our setup with paper ballots, it'll be slightly different in that we'll also have to provide a pin to each voter as well. Because there's, the stylus isn't going to do them any good whenever it comes to filling out a paper ballot.
Yeah, well, pens at least are cheap.
Yes, we've already got, a couple of boxes of pens, literally tens of thousands.
Well,
So
the reason I say that it needs to be wiped down constantly is not for people touching the machines, is for if anyone is unmasked in the facility and they cough and they're asymptomatic and they, are sneezing and don't realize it, and they get anything on those machines and somehow it gets transferred to anyone else. That's what I'm trying to
yeah,
prevent.
and just so y'all know, we're basically for Jacksonville, what we did, since we weren't able to get the sanitizing wipes, is we obtained bleach and sent out a bleach solution with basically paper towels to wipe things down with.
That's fine. That works.
I have heard that you can do baby wipes with alcohol. So we
Yeah.
might have to be a little creative.
Yeah, yes, that's the thing is that, yeah, oh, and I will let y'all know that we were able to obtain some hand sanitizer too, and we'll be we should like we currently have a 55-gallon drum sitting in the office, and we're looking at possibly ordering one or two more.
Okay.
Just like, so y'all know, a 55-gallon drum will fill over 232-ounce bottles.
Okay. Great.
Hey, Brian,
Yes,
Brian, I
sir.
had to interject something. Since this is a public meeting and we had invited the public to be able to comment, should we be sharing these documents through share screen, just so that anybody that's watching via YouTube can kind of follow along as we go over this?
I would prefer if we would, anything that's considered a public document that's not something that has address information on it, be shared that way, such as the agenda.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what I'm thinking, because we say if you have questions, please email us. I think it would be helpful to the audience out there in YouTube world if they could see the documents that we're reviewing and kind of follow along.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agree. 100% agree.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, like I don't think we're set up for that right now, but I can get with Jody after the meeting and do so going forward.
Okay.
Could we have a copy of this that has a draft all over it available for the public to view?
Yeah, we can post
And
that in our
after-
website under the documents section.
And once again, when you post it, you can solicit more additional comments, because maybe someone seeing this, we'll have a chance from out there. We'll have a relevant comment that could help us.
Yeah, well, I mean, we need
So let's do that.
As y'all know, this is going to be a very difficult task in order to get the balance just right. So we can definitely use all the ideas that we can get.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Anything else? Okay, go ahead.
Madam Chair, before we put that on the internet, I would like to put a disclaimer on there on the bottom of on the footer of each page, about this being a draft, this being a working document. But that, I
Yeah.
think there needs to be a disclaimer.
Absolutely. Every
Agreed.
single page, and draft needs to be like huge across, do a watermark across the like text of it.
It
So,
does have a watermark, I believe. Yes, it does.
It does. Yeah, it does.
well, I'm looking at it on my, there's no watermark on the one that
On
I'm
your
looking
phone.
Yeah.
We can target the watermark.
at. So have one that's, when you, no matter how it's downloaded, there's a watermark, and also has the footer that says, draft, and has the date. Like you have the last updated there on the top, but add that additional information. Thank you, Commissioner Starr.
And I would recommend making that a PDF. Um,
Okay, and just so y'all know, I just got buzzed by a wasp. So if you see me looking kind of cagey, that's what it is.
You got buzz, what? What'd you
I
say?
got buzzed by a wasp.
oh,
Oh,
There's a wasp in the office, so.
tell Barry Hyde he's got a spring for some bug spray there at the county building. Okay. Anything else with the contingency mitigation procedures for the 2020 general election?
I just,
document?
all I want, see if there's the updates that we mentioned, get those changed and get them to us as soon as you can. So we can get those right back and get this as the final document
Yes.
for the next meeting.
Agreed.
Excuse me.
Okay. So the next item, and it's almost 9:30 on a school night. Well, I guess not. I guess school's not really in session right now.
This work.
It's on a work night. Other business, our absentee ballot canvassing plan. Mr. Poe, do you want to lead us through that?
Yes, if you just give me a moment to pull it up.
Sure. And as you're pulling that up, vote center, the quorum court still hasn't approved us having vote centers that I'm aware. Is that,
Well, we have to finalize our plan to submit it to the quorum court for them to approve it.
okay,
Basically, that process, how it works is the commission would approve it, then we get a certification from the clerk on the secure connection, which the staff has gone and checked all the polling locations at this point.
okay,
Then after the clerk gives their certification, then the quorum court can take the plan up. Then after the quorum court approves it, we'll submit to the Secretary of State for their approval.
do we have enough machines? I recall when we were looking at machines that we needed, an option to do vote centers, we have woefully not enough currently.
That is correct. We would basically use a hybrid model with a limited number of vote centers. Essentially, what we would do is open our early voting locations on the Monday before the election and on election day. And this has the benefit of us being able to use 100% of our equipment on election day, rather than leaving 60% of our express votes sitting in locked rooms.
Okay. Okay, you have the
I have the-
absentee plan? Okay. All right, lead us through.
Okay, so basically, what we're looking at is, I kind of mentioned a little bit of it earlier, but for the absentee process, we're planning to bring in roughly 75 people to process the absentees for a full week.
Okay.
We will
How is
have,
that compared to previous years?
well, since we've had the extended canvassing period, which has only been for a couple of cycles, typically we'll bring in 24 general election.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're more than tripling that.
Okay.
Now in years before that, whenever we only had the day of the election, we would bring in 60 people for a general election, or up to for presidential. It was usually more around the 40, 50 for midterm elections. But since we do have the extended canvassing period, we're planning to bring in basically, if assuming that it's needed, which I don't know if you all had followed the primary elections through June, but there's a very good chance that it will be needed.
I agree with that. I've seen the news.
So yeah, I mean, you have states like Pennsylvania going from 2% cast absentee ballots, 64%. A state like Delaware going from 3% to 80%. Now, I don't think it'll be quite that extreme, but I would say that it would not be at all surprising for us to look at 25 or 30% of our vote being absentee for this general election.
Then we definitely need more than 75.
Well, if you kind of go down the plan, if we bring in that 75, we're able to basically run them, or we're able to do a full 6 days of canvassing. Then we can theoretically knock out over 60,000 ballots.
Let me ask a question. When we get the information to canvass the issue ballots, and one thing I brought up before is that there needs to be clear information on that form, because some of it, it says other or whatever. There needs to be better description or a better pick list. Who is it? The canvassers that are putting that information down, writing that information down?
Like on the
outside paper?
like on this form?
I can't see. Hold on. I have my other thing pulled up. What form? Let's see.
It's a
I
regular
can't see. It's too
form.
small. Let's see.
Okay, but
I
like
think so. Yeah, the green form.
yes.
So they're the ones filling that out, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the thing that concerns me. I think we're going to see around a 40% to 45% of absentee ballots coming in. And with that, if we don't get this, with what I brought up the other day, the voter education piece and what not to do, the error rate is going to be much higher than in the recent years. So we're going to have a huge stack it's going to be impossible to do that night. The thing that's going to make it go quicker is if we have things either more electronically done, or if we have a simplified statement or a simplified list on there that's very specific to what the issue is and how to get to it, so that we can process those much faster and not spend so much time trying to figure out what the problem is, where the problem is, even if it's putting tabs on different areas of the voter statement versus the application. I mean, but we definitely need to know this is the issue on this one, and this is the issue on this one. Then it'd be separated out by type. So if we're going to have that many folks doing it, we need to kind of be proactive in how we're going to handle it when it comes back over to the commission, so that we're not holding everything up.
100% agree.
I agree as well, and I totally agree with it being proactive, and that education piece I think is going to be so important. I wish someone from the clerk's office was here tonight, but Brian, can we work with the clerk's office to? I mean, what are they doing as far as we need to find out what they're doing as far as education on the absentee filling it out. Is there like a simplified checklist? Make sure, go down this checklist. Make sure your name is spelled exactly on both forms. Make sure address is exactly on both forms. The more errors we can catch on the front end like that, then that's the less we'll have to deal with when we process those ballots.
And the same thing goes for the list that was provided by the clerk's office on the designated bearer. That took an awful amount of time last time on not a huge election, but just trying to locate, the names. They're not in any kind of order. on those designated bearer list. That's another thing that if we could try to make either one, like an electronic or a digital version, which would be much better, that we can look at and quickly do a find and find the person that's on there. Or at least those lists be in some type of order that we can quickly get to it and know exactly what we're looking for, or maybe some numbering system. But anything that we can do to try to be more proactive and not waste so much time on those type of procedural tasks.
We can talk with the clerk's office and see what we can do to work that out. And as far as our procedures go, we can try to clean up this form and basically get it more, basically update it to have a little bit clearer designations.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Brian, where will the absentee ballot canvassing happen at the election commission? Will we in that big back room?
Yes, that's what we're looking at.
Okay.
One thing I should also mention is that, like I've heard from talking to other coordinators, around the state that there's been a request put into the governor to extend the canvassing period to include the entire period of early voting. So basically to give us an additional week for canvassing. There's also been a request put to the governor's office to use his emergency powers to extend the tabulation period by a couple of days. So just a heads up on that.
Okay. Thanks.
And-
That's good to know.
And if if that does come to pass, then that would significantly ease the burden by giving us more time to basically wade through this sea of absentee ballots that we're expecting.
Okay. All right. What else? What else do we know about?
I have a question. Commissioner Starr, I like what you said about you're kind of anticipating a 40 to 45% absentee ballot rate.
Mhm.
I agree with that as well. But Brian, just in your experience, what do you think? Do you agree with that sentiment? Do you think that'll be?
I think that it will be an order of magnitude greater than anything we've ever seen before.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Good answer.
I concur with all that.
Basically, just kind of give y'all some historical background. To my knowledge, in recent years, the highest number of absentee ballots that that have been counted were 8,000 in 1992. It would be nothing at all for it to be 5, maybe even 10 times that.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. So how are we doing on the recruitment front as far as poll workers? I've had a lot of interest of folks approaching me, and I've been sending them your way. I mean, there's been several emails that I've sent to you and Sean that I've received, and I was like, contact these folks. So how is that going? And does there seem like there's been any increase in interest with that? Or I saw that in the DemGaz, Kat Stromquist, she put a little blurb at the bottom about how we need poll workers and to contact the election commission. So how are the efforts on that?
Currently, we have 200 prospects in our system. That's folks who haven't worked before but have submitted their information. So you pair that with the roughly 1,100 folks we already have in our system. That's a good start.
Mhm.
Have we contacted those 1,100 in the system to see if they are still interested in being poll workers?
Yes, we're actually we're in the process of sending out a survey right now.
Okay.
Like it's we have basically we have the surveys printed off. We're going to stuff the envelopes and send them out tomorrow.
Good. Keep us
What-
abreast of that.
What is the plan if we have a polling early vote center, a vote site, where several of the poll workers come down with COVID?
Like basically what we would have to do is build in a reserve. And that, that's kind of I know that's kind of what we're trying to recruit way more people than we need.
So alternate teams that can come in Because, you know, if even one, to Commissioner Starr's point, if even one poll worker is sick, you're going to have to replace that whole team because they've been exposed. They may be asymptomatic.
Yeah.
So you would train alternate teams that could come in, you know, deep clean that whole polling location and then put the new team in place.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, basically, as far as early voting goes, we could draw from our election day pool, but for election day, you know, like say that we have a group that comes up, you know, say 3 days before the election, they let us know that they are, you know, they either they've been exposed or
Quarantined or whatnot.
quarantine or whatnot, then you know we would just have a pool of the idea is to build up a reserve, to build up a pool of alternates that we could draw upon.
Do you, in our budget, there was a line item for like contractors. Does that allow for us to contract a cleaning crew or janitorial crew to come in if we have an issue like that on the fly?
Are you talking about the like which line item? Because the contract labor line item is actually our poll workers.
And there's nothing in that language that allows for actual contract labor.
Well, that would probably be under other professional services, which is also a significant line item within our budget.
Okay. So we would have the ability to get a cleaning crew, a professional cleaning crew to come out if they had to basically clean a site before the early vote site opened again the next morning.
I would think so. I'll definitely have to look into that more.
Okay. Add that to your ever-growing list. I think we've given you quite the list already tonight, Mr. Poe. Go ahead and add that to the things that you get back to us about.
Well, these are just so many different things that we have to keep in mind and kind of have a plan for, should anything happen. So it's a lot, and hopefully nothing will, and we're just over prepared.
And it's better to be over prepared than under prepared. That's for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. We don't want a you know, anything that would happen in Wisconsin or Kentucky to happen here. Let's learn from their mistakes and let's get ahead of that.
Absolutely. Okay. Anything about this particular the absentee voting contingency plan?
I think we just probably need to update some of the language with the changes that have occurred. So
I agree with that.
now we know that, you know, the governor and the secretary of state, and there's actually so I do think we need to update the language to reflect those changes.
Agreed.
Agreed.
And look at more of a trajectory. So, you know, instead of a resurgence, we're kind of watching a path, and it's going the same. It's following a certain path, and the predictions that we've seen. So maybe look at it that way instead of a resurgence. But other than that, I mean, I think it looks pretty good.
Agreed.
Is pretty comprehensive.
Yes, very. My number one thing is I don't want I think there's a misunderstanding between absentee voting and mail voting. And there are different requirements for those two. We have very specific requirements set in statute that we have to abide by and we have to be consistent with. And I don't want that to come back as, you know, we're trying to disenfranchise voters because, you know, they didn't sign something, or their signatures they blatantly do not match, or they left off the address on their voter statement. So these are the kind of issues. These are the things that I want to have a lot of voter education about, because it needs to be very clear that, you know, we haven't had, you know, 10 or 15 years to prepare for massive mail voting, that we have our statutes, our laws in place, and we have to follow those laws. So, you know, we have to kind of put it back on the voter, but we'll give them as much information as we can to make sure they're not, you know, making those errors that's going to, you know, make it where their ballot can't count.
And I think that's a very good point, is because when you look at it, this process is not designed to handle the type of volume that we're looking at. You know, from the rules that are in place, from the legislation that is, from the laws that are in place, to, you know, basically what we've dealt with up until this point. So I think that, doing whatever we can to reach out to the public and to reach out to the voters and let them know that Arkansas is not like, say Oregon, where where they have their laws set up in such a way to be very forgiving of mistakes. In Arkansas, it basically needs to be exact in order for it to be counted.
All right.
Brian, to your point, and and again, we can talk to the clerk's office about this, but and I mentioned the checklist earlier, but I would love to see a checklist that's online, and hey, you got your absentee ballot in the mail. Look at this checklist. Make sure you fill this out correctly, make sure your addresses match. Make sure all this is correct before you mail that in to the clerk's office or go deliver it in person or have your designated bearer take it in. And this could be something that's online. This could be something that they can have a PDF that they can download and print off. But I think having that voter education, again, to Commissioner Starr's point, there's going to be a lot of people filling out absentee ballots for the very first time. And that's going to be a recipe for a lot of human error and a lot of problems. So if we can get ahead of that with the voter education and provide them the resources they need, I mean, basically like step by step, fill out an absentee ballot for dummies, like those books. But having that, I think, will be very helpful to the voter. And then if they know that if they've checked off every box, they filled out everything correctly, they've double and triple checked it, everything matches up, then they shouldn't have any problems with their ballot being counted and won't lead to that disenfranchisement that we were talking about.
Mhm.
Commissioner Thomas, I think that that responsibility goes to us.
Mhm.
That's not on the clerk's office. That's us. The
Right.
clerk's office is for the application piece.
Mhm.
That's their responsibility. But when it comes down to the actual canvassing of absentee ballots, counting of absentee ballots, that's the election commission's responsibility and duty. So
Right.
I think it is our duty to be the one, and I gladly welcome them to please also do that.
Mhm.
But I think it is our duty to get out that voter education, because at the end of the day, it comes back to the commission.
Right.
So
We'll be the one
we already
process.
started it. We already started. I actually asked Brian the other day if he would please put a link on the webpage with some absentee information because I saw so much misinformation going all over Twitter.
Mhm.
Um, and he already added the page and it's there. So we can go ahead and start really putting some information out there and getting it together. And I do think we should work with the clerk's office, and I would like to, it'd be nice to, have it would have to be a public meeting, but with the clerk's office to see how we could kind of work together to come up with some ideas.
Absolutely. That's what I meant by that, is working together and making sure that we're not duplicating efforts, but we're on the same page and we're complementing each other's efforts.
Absolutely.
Brian, is that something you could put together? I saw the absentee page and I think that looks great. That's a great start. But a checklist of, hey, you're the voter, you got your absentee ballot, this is your voter statement. Let's make sure you fill out everything correctly and everything matches up.
Well, that's something that I could definitely talk with the clerk's office about. I know that one change that they were planning to make was to basically improve the voter statement form so that it's more clear as to what the requirements are, what needs to be filled out, what doesn't, kind of based on what uh, the form that was included in the state board, proposed rules that ended up getting laid on the table. So I know that's one area they're looking at, and we can definitely talk to them about something along the lines of a checklist type deal to make sure that everything's included. Basically work with talk to them about whatever instructions are included with that, because that's it's vitally important that the voter complete that information, or provide all the necessary information so that we're able to count that ballot.
Right. I mean, even if something is where it says printed name of voter, you could please make sure your name matches your name on your ID. This is not the time to put in your nickname or anything like that. Put your given name as put on your ID. And then the same with, I mean, let's get ahead of some of these common problems we see. The date of birth, it says that, but you could not today's date, make sure it's today's, your date of birth. We know what problems that voters tend to have, and we can get ahead of that.
It would be
Alright.
nice to have a video or some
demonstration.
Graphic demonstrations, yes.
Mhm. It's exactly what I was thinking.
Madam Chair,
Okay.
whenever we're ready to, I do have a public comment that someone sent me. Whenever we're
We're not quite there yet. Are we finally, any other discussion about our current that we're looking at?
No, again, just if we could, maybe update the language a little bit to reflect the current changes regarding the governor and the secretary of state, anticipation, and that should be about it.
Okay.
And
agreed.
great job by the staff. This is, I really appreciate this.
Look forward to seeing the next iteration with those updates at our next meeting.
I agree.
Or hopefully before that, if we can get those updates as they get updated, if you can get those out to the commissioners, that'd be good. Okay.
Well,
We were-
we'll get those to you as soon as we get them updated.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so the election fraud issue. We had some issues on the February 11th. And I believe at the time, we had a lot of discussion about this, and I believe Commissioner Starr did say typically once results were certified, we get that information to the prosecutor. We had a discussion. Mr. Poe was going to get some more investigation and hopefully get some statements from the those who were involved and witnesses. And then we had a pandemic that happened. And Mr. Poe did not get back to us until it was brought up again. And thank you, Mr. Poe, for sending this draft to the prosecutor to us for the meeting. So, Mr. Poe, what investigation did you get done since February 11th? And we had previously discussed that. I was hoping for you to get some type of statement. I was hoping for like an affidavit or some kind of written statement or something from witnesses. Where are we? Lead us through this memo.
The memo basically just outlines the facts and identifies individuals who were witnesses.
Okay.
Uh,
And I see we have some attachments. That's going to
And-
identify that.
that
Okay.
include attachments of, the documentation that we do have of it. I've contacted the prosecutor's office and I'm currently awaiting a response.
Okay.
as
And that
to-
was the last action item, correct? From our last meeting, the request was to contact the prosecuting attorney and ask them what all they needed to go forward.
So have you received a response to what they need?
I have not received a response at this point. I'll check back with them tomorrow.
Great.
Okay. Keep us in the loop on that.
Thank you, Brian.
And you're welcome to use my stamp on this once we officially send this out if they need additional information. Because if they want us to provide something specific, then let's get that together for them. So keep this as an agenda item. Brian, if you could make sure it gets added to the next agenda as a separate agenda item to follow up with this issue, so it does not go by the wayside. It's voter fraud is a serious problem. It's an issue for the people of Pulaski County. I want to make sure we take this seriously. So please make sure this is an agenda item on the next agenda. Or if you need to tell that to Mr. Camp, since you made it clear that he does the agenda, just make sure, if you could, please be sure that that's on the agenda for this next meeting. And you have a follow-up so we know what we can do to assist our county prosecutor. In any way we can, we are happy to do so. Okay, did that cover all the attachments that I saw for this meeting this evening that we had planned to discuss? Did I miss anything?
You had said something about about wanting to see the budget. I included the statement of operations, but there's not
Yes, I saw
Real-
that.
a lot to discuss. That's the money we spend on the primary and the precinct.
Yeah, no, that's what we've been asking to get if it's monthly, just send it to us monthly. That's fine. I don't have any discussion with any commissioners regarding the statement of operations that was sent to us.
No, but thank
No
you for
question.
sending it.
Okay,
Thank you.
no, that's good information to have.
Uh, there's,
Alright.
there's also the vote center plan, but I wasn't expecting y'all to necessarily discuss that in this meeting. It was mainly for it to give you, I sent it to you to give you time to review.
Awesome. I like it. I did note that. So commissioners, do you want to set a time to thoroughly discuss this? What do you, commissioners, what would you all like to do? As far as our plan for the possibility of having vote centers for the people of Pulaski County?
I would like time to review the plan in more detail.
Me too. I would like more than just the today when I got this in the email to actually digest it. So Mr. Poe, also on our next agenda, make sure that's the vote center, a plan for vote centers as a line item. So there's notice to for the public, and we can make sure we are as transparent as possible. Okay, what else? Mr. Poe, anything else? I think that covers the attachments that I saw on this
Yeah.
email. Is there anything else I'm missing that we need to discuss before we get to the public comments? And I know Commissioner Price has at least one that he wanted to share with us.
You had sent me an email earlier about wanting to discuss a survey that was set out by the Secretary of State. But having
yes.
looked at the survey, that's not really anything that we handle. That's more on the clerk's end of it.
Commissioners, did you get the email from Ms. Hansberry there at from SOS survey?
I did, yes.
Okay.
And it looked to me more of postage.
Yeah.
It had to do with postage, I believe, and postage payment, barcodes, and things like that. So I agree with
That's
Brian.
not us.
It's not
No.
a-
Okay, but I wanted to be sure that we were all aware since this came in. And if we needed to be looped into any discussions with, for example, the clerk's office, we had that opportunity to discuss it. So this email that was sent, let me go back to the email that was originally sent. And I don't know who Hansberry sent this all to.
Like I've requested the Secretary of State send it to all commissioners.
Okay.
Because,
That's
at least,
fine. But
at
no,
least-
yeah, I understand that. No. Who is this? Is this like that last survey that went out that went to the clerks that was supposed to be one for the entire county? Like what's the audience here that we didn't even know about until the clerk decided to, did the one response. Did this go to the county judge and the clerk and to us? Did it just go to us? Do we need to forward it to the clerk? That's my question. Who got this?
Well, I know that the clerk got it because I asked them.
Okay.
Beyond that, I don't know. Just like I said, just looking at the subject matter, it looks like basically information that the clerk would have rather than us.
Okay. Because I agree with that. I don't think that any of this appears to be anything that we would do. Okay, good deal. Thanks for that. Commissioners, any other business before we go to public comment?
None from me.
Star? No? Okay. Moving into public comment, and Commissioner Price, I'll let you go first because you mentioned you had something. So Commissioner
Yes,
Price.
I have one. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I have one comment or one question about the tabulator for absentee ballots. How fast does it tabulate absentee ballots? Did we lose Brian?
Like I got a phone call and it for some reason linked into the device that I'm using for the phone, for the Zoom.
Did you hear
It's
my
Sir,
question?
Did you hear the question?
I did not hear the question, no.
The question was the tabulator for absentee ballots. What is the rate at which it can tabulate the absentee ballots?
Roughly 3,000 an hour.
Okay.
That's
Thank
a good question.
We have exactly one of those, and depending on our volume, because the original plan was to use several of the DS200s to tabulate. However, the state was so kind as to purchase for us and two of the other large counties, the DS450, which is a by design central scanner, and it's capable of a much higher throughput than what you would send out to polls.
That's very good to know. Thank you, Brian.
Excellent. I like it. All right.
Madam Chair.
Okay, Star, did you have any comments
I have no comment.
that you're, Mr. Poe, did you receive any?
I'm looking, and I haven't seen anything that we've received in regards to this meeting.
Okay, well, if anything comes in, we're meeting again. So we can bring it up at that time. And if there is nothing further, it is 10 PM.
There is something, brother. I'm sorry.
It's my bedtime, but go ahead. Yes.
I'm sorry, but we need to post the YouTube link on the website, and we need to post the YouTube link on social media because it's very hard to find the commissioner's YouTube page. It's embedded in a document on the attachments on the social media, so you can't click on it. So people may not be commenting because they can't access it. So I
Ah,
think it's very important that not only do we put that link on the YouTube icon with linking to the page, but we also rename it to reflect the name of the commission so that people can also find it through a search.
Okay, I will let Jody know.
If he needs any help with it or anything, just, have him to call me.
Okay.
I'm sure
And-
he knows.
I do want to say, Commissioner Starr, thank you for your memo. I think it's what it was called. That you pushed. Gosh, isn't the days been running together? Was it this last week?
I think so.
I think it was. I think it was last week. That was excellent.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for working on that.
No
And
problem.
if we want to, retweet that, or if we want to put out that information again, I think that's perfect content for our social media to kind of reiterate any of that information that was there. And Commissioner Starr, you are awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, anything further for the good of the commission?
Nothing.
Okay. So Thursday is not needed unless, is that correct? Is that my understanding?
That is correct. Based off your vote tonight, I can go ahead and send out the notices pretty much
Great.
tomorrow.
Okay. And then you're going to check, Mr. Poe, you're going to double check with the clerk's office to see if we have any UOCAVs outstanding, or, as far as that goes, because
Yes.
that's pertinent information always for elections. So that means our next meeting will be Monday? Is that right? Let me look at the calendar.
The next scheduled meeting is July 17th, which is, I believe, Friday at 5, or let me double check that. Yeah, Friday at 5:30.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we will adjourn until our next meeting, which will be July 17th at 5:30 PM. Thank you all
Thank you all.
and good night.
Be safe.
We are adjourned.
Good night, everyone.
Here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Brian, Betty, and Jody.
Thank you all.
Y'all rock. Thank you.